Today what we're going to do is look at declare play, and unlike most declare play books or classes you've probably been to, we're not going to talk about specific tactics necessarily. You know, you might have heard of like finesses or end plays or whatever. That's all great, but you need to understand the thinking behind these tactics, because if you don't, they're not going to make any sense in context of a situation you've never been in before. And just to emphasize, how many of you have been learning some kind of a convention recently? It could be puppet statement, it could be, okay, most people, yeah. So you may have been in that situation where, like, you know you're supposed to apply it, but you don't remember how to. The same thing happens when you're playing the cards, and people wonder why, you know, that happens. Well, it's because of the way you're practicing it. You're not really understanding why things are working, you're understanding just what they are, okay? I want to try to teach you the why today. So, the way this is going to work, you have boards in front of you. If you want to pull out your cards for first board, okay? And can everybody see the visual up here, okay? I hope. If it needs to be bigger, just let me know, because I have some leeway with this.
North, I'll have north.
Bert not staying, I guess.
What board's it supposed to be? Because my cards don't match. Yours match?
Do you look at the top of the screen?
I'm north.
I don't know.
Yeah, your hand matches.
Yeah,
Yours
oh,
is
there it
north.
is. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I
It's kind of
got
spiraled around there.
it. Got it.
Okay.
So Bert won't stay.
Okay.
I guess not. No, I don't know where he ran off to, but we'll see. He may show up later. Maybe he just got lost. So can everybody see what's up here okay? Okay, so this is how this is going to work. We're going to walk through the first example together, and then I'm going to point out some things you should be thinking about. I'm going to slowly give you more and more room to do things yourself. So as long as you can see where you correspond to on the visual, you're fine. But I want you to kind of look at your own hand too, so you're actually moving the cards and doing the things we're talking about. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So, to make a long story short here, South is going to play 3-no trump. West is doubled, South's 2 spade bid indicating has this spade length, okay? So, if you're sitting East, because East is on lead and North is declaring here, East, go ahead and put down the 7 of spades. And what the stomach comes.
Like South's playing it. We've got them turned backwards.
Yeah, they're turning around.
Let me, no.
Oh, it's fine. Don't worry.
Oh.
The boards here don't have to correspond up there. You just have to know
Okay.
where you are visually.
We'll turn it the next time.
So when you put our hands down.
No, we're just
Three
putting down.
now.
You're going
Sounds
to
plain.
play it like this, like you would at a bridge game. The visuals up here are just for if you like
Explain
lost
it,
and
you
stuff.
wouldn't
You
leave.
can look if they're correct. Is what we're talking
He
about.
did.
That makes
He said
sense.
7 of spades.
Since you're declaring this, I need you to put your hand back up.
Oh.
Yeah, because you're North. Yeah.
Okay,
And north has the contract.
Yeah.
No, South does.
I know he does, but you're not.
Who has the contract?
North does. I'll show you the auction
Okay,
again.
okay, that's all right.
So you guys with me so far?
Sort of. The boards are having us confused.
So which
It's
direction?
east,
Who's
west.
got the contract?
North is playing 3-no trump, and East is leading the 7 of spades.
I'm playing, so you are leading.
Yeah.
Okay, can you move them down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough.
All right, so is everybody with me so far? You can either follow along with the cards in front of you or up here, just whatever's easier for you,
They weren't back.
okay? And so, since we're talking about declare play, I want you to kind of, if you're sitting North, look at the cards in front of you. If you're defending, look at this from the screen, or, you know, listen to my discussion here. So,
Put your hands down.
whenever you're declaring, the first thing you need to do is figure out how many tricks you need to take, right? So, if you're playing in 3-no trump, how many tricks do you need?
9.
9, okay, we all agree on that? Sounds simple, but it's important. So, the second step is knowing we need to take 9 tricks. How many tricks do we have for certain? Okay, so, you know, if you see aces or a running sequence, you count those. If you can kind of see that the suit's going to pan out, you count those tricks. So, with that understanding, how many tricks do North-South have on the spade lead here?
9.
I hear 9. Anybody else?
No.
9 sure tricks. With no finesses.
Can you guys see that a little better?
It's
then,
too much.
Too big. Okay. I figured I'd try.
Have cuts.
Okay.
Do we
Yeah.
have a possibility of heart splitting 3-3, which they do?
That's what we're going to get to. So we should all count 9 definite tricks. If you don't count 9 definite tricks, stop me, because I will show you. Because the diamonds are running here. So we're not really worried about 3 no trump going down, right? That's not really an issue for us. This hand we're going to kind of talk about what a fast player might do in trying to get an over trick and how you can be a bit too hasty. So what would you guys do as declare here in an effort to make an over trick? What's your plan? This is the 3rd step where we think about, well, since we have our contract down, we have our definite tricks, where can we take extra tricks to either make the contract or make over tricks? Okay, and in doing that, what we want to look at is each suit individually, and then kind of think about if there's any other elements we need to consider. So, for example, can you get an extra trick in the spade suit?
You're lucky to play low on the first one.
No,
Let's see. Oh, yeah. No.
Realistically, no, right? Because there are 3 outstanding honors, and there's no way that East is underled from the King, Queen, Jack, and West is going to put it on. So spades are kind of a dead end. So what about the heart suit?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. You're going to possibly. How would you go about possibly setting up a trick in the heart suit?
You want to lead through the one that hadn't done the double, because that's a bigger hand than the one that passed the whole time.
Okay, but to be more specific, whoever has the queen, you'd like to lead through them, right? We don't really know where the queen is. You might infer that, but yeah. So we have a finessing position in the hearts, and this is a 2-way finessing position because we can finesse through either hand, right? If West had the queen, we could go through that way. If East had the queen, we can go through that way. Does that make sense? Okay. What about the diamonds?
I don't think he had to work on
They're solid.
Yeah, we already counted them earlier, right? And the clubs?
One sure trick.
Well, you could get another one, maybe. No. I doubt it.
Well, how might you get another trick in the clubs? Let's just think about it for fun. What position could exist where that's possible?
I probably played the 10.
The back got the 10 and the jack.
If the king takes it, play the 10 to the 2. If the king takes it, and let's say you get back in the lead, then the 75% rule where the honors are an opposite hand, then I would lead back toward it.
So I'll give you partial credit because what she sees here is like a finessing twice against somebody who has the honors, right? The trouble though is that West should cover here. Whenever you lead the 10, he has nothing to lose, right? It may promote one of partner's tricks. If South had the 10-9, you'd be correct. Does that make sense? Because we have a solid sequence we'd be running through, and then it's a legitimate finesse opportunity. Here, on good defense, that shouldn't happen, but every once in a while you can sneak it through. That's why we look at all 4 suits, because you can see possibilities that are legitimate, like the heart suit, possibilities that are kind of cheating, like the club suit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good declarers look at all their options. So, with that said, what do you guys think about planning the play here? How would you, what are you going to do in order to take this over trick without risking your contract?
But I want to go after the hearts pretty early so I can get back to north. If the finesse fails, then my 4th heart might be coming.
Okay, so which leads me to the next question then. So we're kind of thinking about winning this lead and then working on hearts, right? So it's just a question if you want to win this spade now or do you want to win it later?
I'm afraid to win it now.
Why?
They're good with their spades.
I'd let it ride once.
I mean, you know, look at their spades. If they get in, we're in bad shape.
Okay. You guys still see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me show you what happened at the fast table. So I should be able to do this.
Jack, can I ask you a question though first?
Yeah.
Normally, what I would do, what I've done in the past, like, I would lead to, or play the king of hearts, and then lead toward, you know, the ace jack, which on this one would lose the trick. So, the better one would be playing the 10, and taking it, and then, or anyway, come back the other way.
No, actually, the way you described is the best way to play it because it picks up the singleton queen and east. But since it's kind of a small possibility anyway, you'd be doing it the right way. But
Okay, wait a minute.
the big point of what I want to the big point of what I want to show you today is about something here that a fast player would miss. So if you win the ace of spades, and let's say you cash the king of hearts.
Well, why don't we hold up on spades twice?
We're getting to that. So we agree that we wanted to kind of take a finesse in the heart suit, right? And so this is what we're doing. But the trouble, of course, is that occasionally the finesse will lose, and then the opponents are going to run a bunch of spades. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
So down one, hurry, boo-hoo, you lost a partner. That's great. So this is all avoidable, though. And this technique is most people call it a hold-up play. And the idea is that we don't know where the finesse is going to lose, right? And ideally, we would like whoever wins this trick to not be able to lead spades on us. Can we agree on that?
Yep.
We all see the danger now that the example's been shown. So your idea is partly based on you got a hit in the bidding here, which is another thing good declarers do is they think about, well, what do you know about the opponent's hands based on the bidding and the play. And in this example, we bid 2 spades to kind of show some values or a stopper for no trump, and then West doubled. That implies that he not only has strength in spades, but he probably has length. And so if West is the queen of hearts and we lose to him, there's just absolutely nothing we can do, right? But East is fewer spades than West, and it may be possible that we can prevent East from leading a spade by making him play all those spades first. Does that idea kind of make sense? So what you would want to do in this hold-up play is not win the ace first. Instead, you're going to play low, okay? And it seems very counterintuitive because you're losing a trick, but you would have lost that anyway. So you're really not, losing anything. And so we're going to duck again. And if you notice, we have the same amount of spades as East, and we have a winner. So now if West leads a spade again, and we pitch a loser from dummy, now we can give East the heart queen, and we haven't lost anything. Because see, East can't, what's he going to do? We're going to win, we're going to lead our hearts, and, haven't lost anything. Does that idea make sense? What you see here is something when you start reading and go into more advanced lectures, they'll call timing. And timing is just about understanding the sequence of the cards being played. So in this example, when we won the ace first, the opponents had the advantage in timing because they've gotten rid of our stopper in their suit before we've gotten our heart loser out. Does that make sense? It's just something to keep in the back of your mind. That way, if you ever hear that term used, you're like, oh, I know what that means, because it trips up a lot of people.
Jack,
Yes.
I was at a tournament recently, and a player more advanced than me in this situation, she was talking about the rule of 7.
Yes.
That's sort of what you're talking about, right?
Right. So where that comes into play is answering the question, well, when do I hold up, right? Because something that I see players do is they'll hold up once, which is great, but then they just do this.
Fail, yeah.
And when East has 3 spades in this situation here, you just didn't, it's like you were just, I don't know what you were doing. If East had 2 spades, you would have been fine, but we hold up based on the rule of 7 to account for the most possibilities. And for those of you who don't know what that is, the number of cards you have in their suit, taken away from 7, is the number of times you need to hold up. So 7 minus 5 cards here, I have to hold up twice, which is what I did in the correct example.
Say that again.
So we take the number of cards we have in the opponent's suit, and we subtract that from 7.
Isn't that a rule that it's not, I don't like the rule 7 because sometimes it's wrong to do it. If you're afraid of a switch or...
Right, and that's the other thing, and this is why I don't like teaching rules, is because people use the rules blindly and they don't understand why you're doing this. So it's handy to know because, if you look at the situation here, you're not really worried about anything like an opposing switch. If they lead a club for you, that happens to be good. You'll promote a trick more often than not for you. That's a separate discussion, though. But I just want you to kind of look at this hand here, and as early as trick 1, you need to foresee that you can't just win and go about your business. You need to take precautions to be able to set up your suit safely. Is everybody comfortable with this idea? Does anybody have any questions? Any at all? Okay, if you think of something later, just stop me, because that's why we're here. If I didn't teach, then there'd be no point of coming. You know, and that's really all there is to this hand, because, you know, there's no way that you can help but avoid losing a club. It's just not in the cards for you.
What about the concept, which I've done this right a lot, of going ahead and starting on the lock suit to let them have to pitch?
That's a good point. So,
But here you got to get the hearts done first.
right, and the way that you see the distinction there is by looking at each suit individually and noticing that you don't really know where the heart queen is, so you have to kind of take those precautions. Let's say you knew where the heart queen was here. Well, then you wouldn't have any trouble. You could go ahead and, you know, you might gain by running your suits and just seeing if somebody pitches out in clubs, or you might be able to end play east, for instance. But since your information's limited, we have to go on the idea of, I call it if-then analysis. And this is another thing you want to get in the habit of, is thinking about what could happen and what you can do to counter that. So it's kind of like what we talked about earlier when I said, if West had the Queen of Hearts and we let him get in, bad things are going to happen. There's nothing we can do, right? And if you're curious, if you'd run a bunch of diamonds, West is going to just hang on to his winners and keep that heart guard, because he has to hope that his partner would have, say, another club on her and be able to come back to him later, you know. But then we thought, well, if East has it, we can kind of do something, because we can get rid of all of his spades, and then he's kind of stuck if he does win the trick. Which leads me to another point earlier. You said that normally the correct way to play this heart suit here is to play the king and then over, right? If we knew that the East-West hands were switched, you would actually want to do it the other way for the same reason. You wouldn't want to ever finesse into the West hand, because, like we said earlier, as soon as West wins, you're down. If you let East win, you give yourself an extra chance. So you really aren't losing anything by playing this way, but you're gaining something when it matters. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, so you don't care as much about East.
It's okay if they win.
Right.
They have no spades.
Exactly. And this is why I tell people you don't have to be a mathematician to play bridge well. You just have to be able to think logically. I mean, I don't have to tell you any percentages here to let you know that, well, if West has more spades, I don't want him winning the hand, right? It just, you know. But that's a good question, though. Any others before we move on to the next one? Okay. Go ahead and pick up the second board.
Wait, seven, that's seven. Oh, okay, all right. Who's
Okay.
gonna play it?
Okay, so in this hand, South ends up in 7 no trump, and West leads the 10 of hearts. Now, what I'm going to do is hide this for a moment, because I want you to actually play this out and see if you can think about the reasoning here yourself. And then we'll talk about what you should be thinking, okay? A 7 no trump by,
Okay.
did I say South? Yes.
What is,
So, hey,
Wesley?
10 of hearts.
we need to know.
Okay, 10 off.
Can we go through the bidding?
Well, he's got the.
The bidding's irrelevant. You won't
Oh, okay.
find any information you need in the bidding.
One
If you did, I would
heart.
show you.
You say 3 hearts.
Usually.
5 and 7.
Oh,
Feel free to just
Stop, don't worry.
that's something I'm gonna let heart.
You're not. No, I'm playing it. I'm playing it. Well, it's going.
Okay.
We're in 7
It's
no
heart.
trump.
Okay.
It's not good. Right. It's right over here.
Oh,
That's all right. Yes.
Let's see, Mary. I hope you have a whole lot of points.
You know I don't have an ace.
well, you shouldn't have an ace, so they're in trouble. don't you? But, I mean, you really want to, you want to leave from fourth, fifth,
No either.
I don't know, I mean,
All right, let's see the tricks I can get.
I don't see.
Oh, gosh, here we go. So, nothing good in. You don't need to raise.
Oh, okay.
Just play the
I don't think
king.
I'll take a trip.
Oh,
I don't think it matters.
okay, yeah, that was,
But we still have to.
We have to try.
okay, play the 9.
We went upside down.
Uh,
Of course, it doesn't matter if it's 6, that's kind
No.
of vague. But what are we playing?
we're gonna do it upside down.
Queen.
We heard of it.
What's your lady side?
Well, it's like that, y'all aren't getting more.
Play the,
Because
I could just go ahead and file the card.
I am, because look, I've got the ace and kings. I've got ace, king, queen here. Okay. I have 5 hearts, so I'm gonna play 4 hearts there, and I'm gonna get rid of that other club on this. The question on this was where's the queen of spades?
play a,
Well, I do now, but if you
With
don't.
my lead.
two,
kind of.
yeah.
I know, but if you don't lead a spade, that's my question. That's the question from his hand.
But his lead,
His lead takes that
Well,
way.
maybe I don't do that.
that's
It's bad
what I'm
lead.
thinking.
Yeah.
How that,
That for sure, yeah, that was not the right lead, yeah.
So what do I leave?
leave something past, not give the truth, not give the information. I think, I don't know.
So leave that.
Okay, he led us
Well,
by.
So you guys analyzed it pretty well from what I've heard.
Okay, yeah.
We gave her information.
Yeah, well, you gave me
By
a trick.
Gordon's lead.
You gave me my 7th trick.
We will mention that here in just a second because
I mean, the spades are
Well,
kind
I've lost it
Yeah, you
now.
know, that's
Well,
Okay.
this bottom would be
Yeah.
good.
you have the same situation that they have.
Well,
Okay.
you gotta have, you
Yeah,
gotta
because
get the ace and the
My
king
only
in
hope
first.
I mean,
was
this-
to make the queen of
this
spades.
was just.
Okay. So this is an interesting hand. So
Okay.
first of all, a note on the lead. Well, South declaring West is leading a heart because it's passive, okay? If East were on lead, you would not ever lead a spade because in these high-level contracts like 6 and 7 no trump, you're outgunned in terms of values. Your queen of spades is not going to become a trick by your own force. You need to just let the declarer do something stupid and give you the queen of spades. Does that make sense? Because it's like when you're defending a game contract, you normally have like 15 or ish points between you and your partner. There's something to work with there, right? You have some kings and queens you can lead and promote your jacks and rough things. And 7 no trump, you can't do any of this. So you just need to. Your focus is just on not giving up a trick and just trying to give the declarers as little information as possible. Does that make sense?
Okay, so we didn't know it, but South actually was playing the hand that you would play.
Right, but it's a good point anyway because the play goes along similar lines. But what was your plan starting at trick 1 for how you would make 13 tricks?
You would have had to lead.
Well, I was thinking about playing, I didn't play all the hearts to see if I could tell if they threw away a card.
If it would give you any information.
Yeah, that would give information.
And I like that because that's what I'm going to mention here explicitly in a second is how because that's the right thinking. You want to go about doing that. Did anybody else develop a plan whenever they were declaring this contract? Or if you were a defender, what were you kind of thinking the declarer was going to do when, this contract, when the dummy came down?
I was just gonna like it.
Okay. And I don't blame you because, when I look at a 2 count, I'm just like, okay, let's claim already and move on. But it never happens. So, as declarer here, we can see we have 5 good hearts, 2 spades, 3 diamonds, and 2 clubs. So we're a trick short. Can we agree on that? Your only real chance for another trick here is in spades, right? Because, you can't do anything about the red suits. Your clubs are just kind of eh. And if you were thinking about like getting an opponent to discard a bunch of clubs or something, there's just too many clubs out there for you to do that. It's a good thought though. There'll be an example that runs along those lines. So it's really just a question of where the queen of spades is. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And when you're in a situation, especially in high-level contracts, where you need to only find 1 card, what I like to do, as you were getting at, is just run a bunch of winners outside of the suit that's in question. And my thinking is that in playing a bunch of cards, I'm gaining a lot of information about the hands we're distributed. And the reason that's important is because, like, let me just show you here. Of course, the example isn't done like this, but if I lead another heart, West is going to show out, right? And so is East. That lets me know that Heart started West had 2 and East had 2. Those are 2 cards that, you know, they can't be anything else. So that lets me know more about where the Spade Queen might be. If you ever hear the term thrown around, it's called the rule of vacant places. Basically what you're doing is you're playing all these cards and you're watching when East-West discard. So if I was watching the East hand, for example, okay, so I've noticed he's played 2 hearts and 2 diamonds, and he's shown out in a diamond. So he started with 2 diamonds. He pitched a spade also. We'll kind of keep that in the back of our minds. But I'm just looking to see when East shows out. East is shown that he's out of hearts, so he started with 2 hearts and 2 diamonds, okay? So his other 9 cards have to be black suit cards. Can we agree on this?
Yeah.
And we see that he's pitched 2 spades. If you know the count of one hand, per force, you'll also know the count of the other hand. Does that make sense? You're kind of seeing 3 of the 4 hands, and because there's only 1 hand left, that's all there is for the rest of the cards to go. That's why this is a good technique. It's as if you're seeing the cards without actually peering over and, you know, getting a drink. Does that make sense?
So I played all the hearts, but I didn't start on the diamond.
Right, and that's where you have the right idea, but you can do it even more, right? Because
Yeah.
you've got all the tricks in the world, so what'll happen is when you run a bunch of tricks, you're going to find out that West can only have 1 spade. Does that make sense? Because, like, let's go from the very beginning here. Okay, so if we knew that East has 2 hearts and 2 diamonds, and we would know that West has 2 hearts and 5 diamonds, right? And so you can just look at one hand. I'm just explaining, you know, looking at either side because it's the same thought process. But what you'll see, it'll start pitching all these black cards. And East will have pitched 2 clubs and then played another 2 clubs as well at this point. So that means that East has started with at least 2 hearts, 2 diamonds, and 4 clubs. Right? So you can see where East has to be more likely to have the Spade Queen, if not absolutely certainly so.
Right.
And because of this layout here, you can make that 100% sure that you win this contract by playing to the ace and then finessing back.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
It seems a little overwhelming, but you don't really have to count all the hands. I mean, all you have to do is, let's say I wanted to count East's hand, I just look and see when he shows out. And from there, I can piece together where everything else was. Okay, is there any questions on this? This is very useful in high-level contracts. You occasionally see it in places like 3-no trump, where you can kind of run 6 tricks and you need to take a finesse. It's very helpful for that. Notice you don't lose anything either, because if you're going down, it's a bad board no matter what you do. Okay? So on to the next hand. And I'm going to let you guys play this one too, but we're going to kind of discuss it as we're playing it.
So who plays it so we know which way?
South's declaring 5 clubs.
You want us to switch it around so?
Yeah, if you guys get tired of declaring them and want other people to do it, knock yourselves out. I always let the tables do that, because some people prefer actually doing it, some people prefer watching, and it doesn't matter to me either way. So
Y'all want to, you say
Not from where I'm sitting.
North. Keep going back where we go.
it's funny.
That's the works. Try to get
Our
there.
brains have always more there.
And you like playing
We'll go to Fairland, we'll go to Fairland, we'll go to East, it's different. And that's not north either. North is that way.
yeah.
Oh, and we can let you move over there.
So we're actually wrong the way we play here.
Okay, so the bidding here is not what would happen at the table, only to illustrate where the contract's being played, and you don't really need to know anything about the opponent's distribution for the sake of this example. So, yeah, just because. So, West is going to lead the Ace of Hearts, and we're just going to kind of walk through the same motions we've been walking through the past two hands.
So you can put yours down, then you can play that.
Oh, in the first seat?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I could see doing it in third seat, I mean,
Yeah, I'm not advocating this bidding. This is just to get the contract over there. No, absolutely not. No.
For illustration only.
that's good. Then.
You might find something like this in like a Victor Malo book, but that's about it. I mean, that'd be pretty extravagant.
Yeah.
Open 5 clubs with a flat 12.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so when West leads the Ace of Hearts, declares, what are you thinking? Like, what's your thought process?
Why did he do this to me?
Yeah, I'm getting mad. You know that.
I mean, partial credit. I mean, I'd be kind of pissed off too, but you're stuck here no matter what. So,
Good.
after you go to the bathroom and smash the mirror and come back, what's your plan?
Well, they're gonna get you parked. Okay.
Okay, I agree. You can't stop anything with the 2 heart tricks.
You can't stop the heart, so just, you gotta figure out what to do now.
Yes, and see, this is another thing where I want to point out, if you're declaring, you need to not play at trick 1 very quickly here, because sometimes the crucial decision is at trick 1, but oftentimes it allows you to kind of play in tempo whenever something weird does come up. So before you start playing 2 hearts and thinking, oh, I have to lose these, think about what's going to happen. You know they're going to cash 2 hearts. Think about the other possibilities whenever it's trick 3, because everybody can see it. You might as well take your time, right? So, but just to speed this along for a moment, they cash 2 hearts, and West is going to lead the Queen of Hearts, okay? So,
Well,
So do your 2 heart tricks.
yeah. When I want a really good suit preference signal from Gordon on the first trick, when I get through cashing my 2 hearts.
Except I don't have one.
we might touch on that if we have time in a second.
There are a lot of people in here that don't know suit preference at all.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get too.
So what do I leave first?
Okay, Jack, so the reason you're getting.
I wanna play a low card,
Queen of
that doesn't
Hearts
look very
is
low.
because
Those are the only 2 you have?
somebody's
Okay.
out.
Yeah, so, and West could lead anything here, but West is going to lead the Queen of Hearts because they say so.
I generally say not leave the Queen of Hearts.
8, and then when I play the 9, it says I have to use a number.
We do that
But I
anyway?
want to show it double and blind by 8, and then that shows a number, right?
Well,
We play upside down.
Oh, you do?
Hoping our partners out.
So shouldn't I play that and then play that?
well.
I mean, that looks like I don't like it. But I know you have to keep.
But so, whenever you get this third round of hearts, what should you be doing? Like, what's your plan to make another trick here? Because you've already lost 2. If you lose any more, you're going to get a bad score.
So what are you doing?
Which
Well,
way
he's made.
So where's your next trick coming from?
I mean, I'm.
Not me, because I don't have a lead.
Well, anyway, why don't you play a heart?
Okay, well, that's not a bad idea. So I heard a suggestion at this point to rough low. The trouble is that on the Queen of Hearts lead, if you rough low, you're going to get over roughed. So partial credit.
So it doesn't hurt.
The other thing is that even if you do rough, you need to notice that it doesn't develop an extra trick. You're taking care of a loser, but you're still a trick short. Does everybody see that?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so there was a suggestion to rough low, and aside from the obvious trouble here that you're going to be over roughed, if you rough low, you're not going to end up with an extra trick. So notice how you have a spade loser still and no way to pitch it immediately. Does everybody see that?
But what if the player doesn't know that East is out?
Well, that's just it. The point here is that you don't know, but you're able to take the safeguard if you had thought at trick 1 about the line of play you need to take. Okay, and
Hopefully.
But high low could be 4. Not 2.
that's true. But and again, this is where I want to point out that at trick 1 you should have already thought about this, right? Because you know that 2 hearts are coming. If a third round of hearts comes,
What do you do?
Right, exactly, because you know they might be doing it because you could fall asleep and they get an overruff that way. So, can you guard against it, and if so, how? And also the ultimate question: where is your extra trick coming from?
And the other problem is with 9 and 8 of hearts, I can't give a clear signal.
We'll that's the defensive issue. We will touch on that here in a little bit, but I just want to focus on the Claris problem.
Okay, so what is my third lead? Another heart?
Yeah, the Queen of Hearts.
You know, somebody.
Well, I did the queen already. Oh, you mean
Okay, is,
Third, look, you got the ace queen, is that what you
ace,
left?
king, queen?
No, you left the
I
ace
know it's
queen.
it's got
I
two
know,
hearts.
yeah.
Go back.
He said leave the third heart, a good heart,
I
yeah.
will leave that.
So, how many people as the Claire are stuck here as to what to do? Like, have absolutely no clue where this 11th trick is coming from.
So you've got two hearts in
You know what's
Teresa.
wrong with that.
So you gotta figure out where this extra card's coming from. She needs to
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you lay a low heart, this might help you. Maybe that's why you do it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I did show my full scope of
Yeah.
ace and
What
queen.
about the thing? Do you want to?
So I'm gonna leave the king on trick 3.
But that's a defensive issue. Just focus on the Claire for now. I will touch on that in a moment
Okay,
because
sorry.
it is good defensive subject, but that's not the point of the day.
Low heart. You may be thinking over here.
Any ideas over here as to what the Claire's ideas are as far as making an 11th trick?
Well, we're not talking to him.
I know.
You probably less than that.
You're supposed
He
to
wants
wait
us to
for
go
it.
ahead and play.
Okay, so you have to figure out what to do, or we have to figure out what to do. Okay, so
Sometimes it's tough.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But she knows I either have 2 or 4.
Yeah,
Not
so
enough to go around for me to start.
so whether it's clear to you or not, you had the ruff with the Queen of Clubs trick 3, right? Is the getting over ruff. And now your next move might have been to say, I don't know, pull trumps, right? Because you need to do something kind of safe right now. And this would be if you were absolutely clueless. I'll show you how to actually see the right line here in a second. But if you were kind of stuck, you probably would have just done something like draw trumps and see what happens, right? And then something like this would have happened. Okay, so you draw a bunch of trumps and you end up here. All right, and so again, you know, it's still the same question we haven't answered. Where is that 11th trick coming from? Right? So what are our ideas? Partial credit. The trouble here is that when you're roughing in the long hand, you're not going to ever set up extra tricks by roughing. Now, what you're doing might work if somebody had, say, the Queen Jack small of diamonds, right? Because you would play 3 rounds of diamonds, ace, king, and low, and then maybe your 10 would be good. But if you just rough in the long hand, you're not producing extra tricks because those clubs are good regardless of what you do. Does that make sense? When you rough in the short hand, you're getting an extra trick because those trumps are normally getting played on higher trumps than your own hand when you're drawing them. And that's why it's not anything extra. It's just they're kind of the same trumps and the same trick. Does that kind of make sense?
I don't know where the extra coming
well, you gotta figure out.
from, but we have to know.
Well, based on our discussion, you know it's not clubs, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's got to be one of the other 2 suits.
Diamonds or spades. Diamonds don't look
Gotta
too
be
good.
It has to be done.
Yeah, so this is a tricky hand, right? And the reason it is because this is where we get into sort of the sophisticated area of what we call squeezes. And you're probably feeling stuck because you might be able to develop a trick in either suit. Can we agree on that? It's not super likely either way, but like the Queen of Spades could drop, right? Notice you can't finesse the spades here. Or, as we discussed, you might be able to rough out the Queen Jack 3rd of diamonds, right? Now, the other possibility is that somebody holds both queens. And I want to show you why you should think about this here in just a second. But in this situation, you just feel kind of stuck. And most people would probably do something like, you know, cash the spades just to see if this good luck happens, and it doesn't. Okay? And this is where people go wrong on the hand, is that they would try for diamonds too, but they didn't think ahead, because let's say you tried this. Okay? You see how you can't get to the north hand now? That's not good. So just because you see that that's going to happen, if I take you back to this situation here, you have a better option. We can't cash both spades and then play on diamonds. Can we do something else?
Are you broaching on the subject of squeezes?
Yes.
Okay, and that's why I'm here.
Good. Any ideas? I want any suggestion at all. I don't care how ridiculous it sounds in your mind. It's probably the right thing to do.
A higher club, play the club from the board.
Okay, that's an idea. So you might leave a couple trumps. Now think about what happens if you do this though. You're going to have to make 2 discards from the north hand, right? You know, that might get kind of tricky. The best thing you could do would be to do something like this. Like I want to discard a spade because that's a loser, and I'm going to discard a diamond because I can't discard a spade. It's a winner. You know, but see here how East is kind of stuck. Okay, and the reason he's stuck is if he pitches a spade, you can cash your spades and the jack's good. Does everybody see that? If instead he pitches a diamond, you just cash your diamonds are good, right? Now, what's important here is you're able to go across between the 2 hands. That's kind of the trouble we had when we roughed out this diamonds after cashing the spades. Did we see that earlier?
Yeah.
That could be kind of a problem. So I'm giving you partial credit because this accomplishes the same thing, right? Is just running the clubs earlier. But the best thing that you can do on this hand is cash 2 spades. And if it doesn't drop, you haven't lost anything yet, right? So at this point, now what you can do is get back to your hand. And you're just going to do the same thing. Right? The difference is that now the situation is going to be clear what suit you need to play on. Because
I'm a little bit confused. Can you show off? Because we haven't seen, well, I guess you put our hand out. So are you talking about after you trump the queen club? I mean,
yeah, so just to show you what's happened, we'll go from the beginning real
Yeah.
quick. So we led 3 rounds of hearts, roughed and dummy high. We drew trumps. Well, this guy didn't draw all his trumps. So you did this. Okay.
So now the board is void of clubs.
Yeah. Okay, and so now what I'm saying is that you cash 2 spades, see if the queen drops, and if it doesn't, you can afford to come back to your hand and do the same thing. This gives you a little bit more clarity about the end position because sometimes the queens aren't in the same hand. So not only have you gained the small possibility where the queen drops with West, but it's just a little easier for you whenever you cash your 2 clubs to know, okay, that 2 of spades is worthless, right? And, you know, Ace is still in the same pickle he was, but now you know, you're seeing the queen of spades being pitched on a small spade. Does that make sense?
Okay, let me,
Go back.
squeezes are so far.
fast.
Yeah, I want to get the whole hands down.
Yeah.
The main concept of a squeeze, and I've checked the book out over there, and I quickly returned. It was too much for me.
I understand it. It's
Yeah.
not
I mean,
they're not easy.
So when we get to where we got earlier, you're going to go ahead and run some trumps to figure out where things are. Is that the start of a squeeze?
Basically, this is all squeeze is. You're forcing your opponent to discard something stupid.
Okay, that's what we need to know.
You know how, like, every once in a while you'll try for somebody to just pitch something dumb? You're squeezing them. That's all it is. So the difference between accidental squeezes and expert squeezes is that they think about where the cards are prior to running all their tricks, okay? So in this example, as early as trick 1, I know I'm losing 2 hearts, and I've kind of mentally played out some of the things that we've talked about today, okay? And as you play bridge more, you'll get better at this, but I call it visualizing the hand. And that's just understanding, okay, well, if I play ace king and a rough a diamond after I run my 2 spades, I'm kind of stuck. So I need to do something different, and for some people, and this wasn't mentioned here.
Okay, but you just start and do each one. play the hand.
Yeah, so
I've just sort of gotten lost with.
that's fine. So let's say you ace king queen of hearts and you
Yeah,
rough tie. Okay, so
Okay.
the line I'm suggesting you guys do here is you draw trumps. Okay, and at this point you're going to cash 2 spades.
Okay.
And what this does is it helps you clarify the situation. Another way to think about this, and this is the way that he describes it in that squeeze book, is you have 2 suits that could be potential winners here, right? And the winning cards are called threats. In this example, the jack of spades might be a trick. Not the 2, the jack. Right? I mean, seems easy enough, but it's important to understand. The 10 of diamonds is your other threat because the queen and jack of diamonds might disappear. So you have 2 threats, and they're usually going to be in different hands, and you have a way to access each one, right? We can get to this hand with the ace of diamonds. We can get to this hand with the trump. Does that make sense? Okay, because you need to be able to cash those winners if they become winners. I mean,
So how do you get back to the diamond?
see how you have like an ace and a small one and the king and a small one?
Yeah.
That's your transportation here. So at this point, it's okay to lead a diamond to the south hand and run trumps because now you can play the jack of spades from your hand if it's good, or get to the board with the diamond to the ace, and then those are good.
So you're doing the diamonds first?
No, I'm just explaining how you would. What you're doing here, you have 2 suits that may become tricks, right? They might be a source of tricks. What I'm trying to get you guys to see is that you need to be able to make sure you have a way to get to that hand later after you run all of those other suits.
That's where I'm lost.
Okay, because basically here you.
Close your spades.
Right, we're winning these 2 spades here.
Yeah.
Because in the ending, it'll be clearer for us which suit to play on and which one is a winner. There's a name for that play, but that's not the point, is the name. The point is that when you cash those 2 spades, you're not damaging any issues with getting to either hand to cash a winner, but it helps you understand the situation better. Okay? Another way to think about this would be to say that you have an honor in each hand in the diamond suit, and you can get back and forth that way. So since that's your way back and forth.
That's where I'm just getting lost on it. The 10 of diamonds ends up being good.
Right.
But how do you get there? Okay, that's where I'm.
You get there essentially by just running all the other winners, which are the 2 spades, diamond, king, and 2 clubs. Your hope when you lead this club here, or let me go back a trick. Your hope when you lead this club here is that somebody pitches something silly, right? You can lead another club even and just see what happens.
So you play all your clubs.
Right, because at this point now, since the queen of spades hasn't shown up, your only chance is the diamonds. That's how squeezes work.
Okay, that's what I wasn't catching, that you were doing all the clubs before you did the diamonds.
Right. So, how many people are extremely exhausted with the discussion? And be honest, because squeezes are kind of annoying that way. Yeah, but
Well, I understood it when you more.
yeah, no, that's fine. But it's a good thing to show. So you can see that, and hopefully it makes some amount of sense, right? We're running a lot of tricks, kind of like the last hand, but we're forcing somebody to pitch something stupid instead of guessing where their card is. Does that sit with you well? So good players will see this far ahead at the beginning because they're able to think about what can happen, right? So right here I'm thinking, okay, we're losing 2 hearts. They're probably going to lead another heart and try to psych me out in the roughing it, because if they lead anything else, I'm just going to win it, right? That doesn't really give me a problem. I hope your defenders are, as good as that. And so then I'm thinking, okay, well, where's my other trick coming from? And this is just part of building a plan as declarer, which you should do on every single hand. And you'll thank me later for it, because without a plan, everything is murky. And if you don't believe me, I bet if you talk to any of the people who don't score very well in these club games, I bet you they look at the cards and they just kind of play off of instincts, or they just, cash their winners, or they do something just because. They don't really have a reason for it. I want to teach you to think and have reasons for the things you do, okay? So the reason I'm thinking about a squeeze here is because I look at the spade suit and I say, I can't finesse that, and I might drop the queen, but, might not happen. And I look at the diamonds and I see the same thing. I'm like, okay, well, I might be able to rough out the queen jack small, but is it really not, And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, I might be able to make either suit good if I just run a bunch of winners. But if I do that, do I have any problems, right? Can I get to those winners? Okay, and the hard part is just seeing this and playing it out in your head. That is the hardest part of squeezes, because you have to start at the very beginning and say, this is what I think is going to happen, and you have to foresee those snags. But I hope that by kind of touching the cards and playing this out, you can see that, okay, well, the spade suit, there's 2 big cards up here, and if I cash those, then it's okay. But if I cash everything, I might end up in the south hand and, not be able to get up to the north hand for the diamond. I want you to be able to see that, okay, well, as long as I keep that communication, I'm going to be able to identify that suit, I can get back and forth. Okay. Are there any questions about this?
So you're playing pulling trump, and then you're playing the spades, and then you're playing the rest of your clubs, and you play your diamonds at the end.
Right.
Okay.
Because at that point, they're either right. Exactly.
Because I was having trouble with how do you get back.
How do you play these spades?
The way I described was after drawing trumps. Because at this point, if you think about playing ahead, you've identified that you need to get back and forth with diamonds. You can cash 2 spades. In the book, they call this a Vienna coup, and it's just kind of unblocking winners from one of the hands in order to. Sometimes it helps you pitch from dummy, and sometimes it just clarifies the situation. Here it just is a clarifying tool, but it's a good technique to get in the habit of. And after you cash those spades, you come back to your hand with the king of diamonds, you draw some trumps, and you see what they pitch. If you see the queen of spades thrown, then your jack's good. If not, you try the diamonds, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you gave yourself the best chance to make the contract, right? Okay, so are there any questions on that?
So you leave that queen of spades out on purpose.
Yes.
That's your one of your keys.
Right, exactly. And
Whereas I would still like to play. Why not play loaded jack? Is that just totally absurd?
in this situation, there's nothing for them to lose by playing the queen on this trick, right? Because it either wins or gets roughed.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, and good defenders will count the hands too, and they'll be with you every step of the way when they're defending. Usually, there are exceptions. But. Okay, very involved hand. Take a second to breathe. Okay, I'm gonna move to the next hand here. It really is, but that's the nice thing is that, you know, there is a thought process to getting there. And I don't want to just show you, okay, well, here's a squeeze, here's how it works, because that's kind of pointless. I mean, you know, that in of itself is difficult to understand. It's just, you have to be able to take away, this is what you're trying to achieve. And when you kind of practice thinking about, well, how do I achieve that? Those are the mechanics you want to build. Because I'll tell you, I've been into some very, very nasty contracts, and sometimes you have to rely on every ounce of your bridge knowledge to, some of them are headaches. Okay, so
It's like no winner.
oh yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I have the 4-3-2. This needs to be a trick somehow, you know. And I mean, every once in a while. But we're going to move on to the next hand.
22.
Yeah, it'll be 22 for you guys. South is declaring this today, so whoever wants to take the next whack at it. Okay, so this one I'm going to let you guys play on your own. Okay, and Wes is going to lead the ace, king, and queen of spades, and that's about that's about as far as you'll have to go, I think.
You can put your hand. I'm going to, yeah. I like your So what's the contract?
4 hearts. South's in 4 hearts, and West leads 3 big spades.
All right. Thank you.
Which is nice, okay.
I gotta put it down for
Yeah, you want to play the jack?
Doesn't matter if you're upside down, it's trying to really.
That's right.
You got,
Okay,
what's that? No, you
He
got
should
two
play,
things.
he should play the jack, I'm sorry.
Oh, well.
I probably can't have four.
With my hand, it's probably two.
It's probably,
We're
but
doing
not enough to go
upside
around.
down.
Low, high.
So, I need to play for a state.
Especially since the hearts are coming along.
Why do I say this?
Well, no, wait, okay, how many,
You got two.
okay, how many?
That's nice, problem, not having one time in my house.
She's already played two,
And she's got,
so I could not have had four.
yeah, I know
Okay,
that.
so you know I'm out.
Okay.
And you know Mary still got one.
So why not get it with you? I mean, she's got rough. Why waste the king? That's what
I mean, well, okay,
The second and third guess myself.
either he's gonna get roughed here, or I'm gonna rough.
Well, you will, you're brain to some of us.
So when it's.
When,
Hey, you can't write it. Why throw it away?
Why go?
I would leave because I told you that king. But when the dummy's on your right, you leave.
So it's a big difference.
What suit is.
Yeah, and I knew that. Small.
Like,
But even if it's
If it'd been
small,
an ace,
Yeah.
but she might not be.
because, and let me explain the reason you do that. Okay, you play the jack, I go down, she plays the queen, I've got the king on the player. She takes over the ace, if finesse is not the king. But if you leave the clubs, and I have, if the ace is on the board, and I have the king sitting at 10. But like this way, I may have the ace, you know, that's gonna make the king good. But that's just, if that works probably 90% of the time, if you don't have other good legs.
That's true.
I think you start with five, so I think Mary's still got a spade.
And when you,
Okay.
when you leave from a suit, you leave low.
So I think I can
Tell
rough
me
another
you got
spade
power.
if I get to you.
So if you leave
What might I have?
any time you don't like it.
She won't
Get
win
back,
that.
you might think your only chance to win is
No, Boston,
Hit during the night.
something,
You don't
something.
have to. You're
Well,
trying
it's spade.
You're trying,
That's bad, I didn't make
you're
that.
trying to find.
So usually when.
Yeah, the
we
nine
leave,
always is
and
like, I
eight or
hate
nine
to see.
means I don't leave it back. Okay,
That's all she wrote.
But a little bit different when we're
Jack.
playing.
But I'm gonna play the six, maybe. You got it.
I'm a king. See, that makes her play that now.
You're in charge, Mary.
I never get to lead again.
Oh, fine.
Two of trumps.
Anyway.
Don't worry. Yeah, we're just
All right, that was a nice trick. It's no longer good because I roughed so good. Helps. But you- I think you still have to. Especially since it's-
But she's still got a good spade when she's out of trumps. She's still got a good spade.
Yeah, that went off.
I didn't feel right. Darn.
forgot about that one.
You're,
Oh,
Well,
no,
I'll rough
no,
it.
I remember that.
Well, you know I've got a club there, right?
but anyway.
I'm playing the jack, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It's done.
I'm gonna leave it at that. All right. No, she's gonna play the ace anyway. No, she's gonna play the ace anyway.
She says I'm playing.
That's right. Glad you followed instructions.
You see that you're hopeless at this point, right?
Not yet, no. I hold out till the end.
That's good that you do though, because sometimes your defenders fall asleep,
Well,
but
I did so bad.
Okay.
you should kind of know in your heart that if they do everything they're supposed to, then you're hopeless. Same situation for you guys here, it looks like.
Oh, I really did big time bad stuff.
Let's see. Okay, well that's fine. We both made the same error, so we'll talk about this because this is something that's very easy to miss. I miss it occasionally.
Well, what you do is like the two targets left.
Well, he's already said she's gone down, so.
Because I've got a
Well, I mean, how
So there are two small declarer issues on this hand. Okay, so again, we're thinking as early as trick 1 because that's where all magical things happen. Is trick 1. As declarer, walk me through your thought process. Start with telling me how many tricks you have for certain and what you need, and all the same stuff we've been doing.
Ace of clubs with yeah.
Okay, you can look at the hands too if it's easier for you to see those hands. Just tell me, declarers and defenders who want to be declarers, what were your thoughts? What was your thought process in trying to make 10 tricks? Well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be much. You just have to tell me what you had.
If you
I'm here to expand your repertoire of things you can think about.
like that other one, if you kept letting your hearts and I gotta throw away.
Let me make this a little bit bigger here because we're not actually clicking on
we had
anything.
two losers off the top.
First one.
Okay, I agree. There's two quick losers, right?
Uh-huh.
Are there any other losers you can see? Because I kind of like this train of thought.
Well, there's a club you're gonna lose,
I agree.
and you probably have diamond losers, 1 or 2 anyway. Unless you can work that out.
Right, I mean, think about this. So, if you like counting losers, I always like to look at one hand first, and I would normally pick the stronger hand because it has less losers.
Okay.
If you were just to look at losers here, you might look at the south hand and say, okay, well, those spades are pretty bad, the diamond's covered, one of the clubs is covered, and there's a heart finesse. You kind of see how I got there?
Right.
So, like, I start with one hand and I say, okay, well, I mean, are there any honors that cover any of these? Okay. Can I rough any of these without risk? Okay. That helps me count my losers, right? So, when I look at this hand, when I'm looking at losers, I'm saying, okay, I'm losing 2 spades off the top. I'm probably losing a club. That's 3. There's a heart finesse that's and I have to deal with this spade loser in my hand somehow, right? Because if it just stays there, it's going to be a loser in the end. Does that make sense? Is anybody lost or confused as to how I got there? It's okay if you are. I just need to know so we can talk about this. Because you have to understand the fundamentals here before you can graduate to understanding what the concept of this play is going to be. Okay, you have to see, 4.5 losers. Okay. So at this point, you figure the opponents are probably going to cash 2 spades, right? We agree on that. West is led and overcalled from sequence. I mean, it's usually what they do. And after they lead 2 lines of spades, I'd bet, based on the theme of this class, they're probably going to lead a 3rd spade, right? And it would be a good thing for them to do because you have to figure out whether they're rough or not. So you would be visualizing this, but I want to show you with actual pictures for clarity. So in this position, if it will ever let me undo the cards, what do you think that you should do?
Well, I just trumped with the 6, but maybe not.
What was your reason for trumping?
Well, I knew he was gonna, we talked about it, I didn't come to the conclusion myself, but I knew he was gonna overtrump because he was out of space.
Okay, so then that's a good thought. So this is what you guys want to do. You need to have thoughts like this because the next thought that should occur to you is that if he's going to rough anyway, does my roughing really help that matter? And if the answer is yes, then you should probably do it. But here it just doesn't seem like it's doing you much, right? If he overroughs, you still have a spade loser and you're going to have a club loser that has nowhere to go, right? So, you want to have these kind of initial thoughts like, oh, well, this might work, but you always want to kind of have some self-doubt, like, is that really the right thing to do? And then, you'll get in these situations. So, does that make sense?
But if North roughs and East has queen little, and hearts, they might go with the queen.
And that it's still the same problem though. It doesn't matter what East really roughs with here, just as much as that you're still losing the trick.
What if I'd had high trumps over there? It'd be okay to go ahead and...
Well, then it'd be a different hand, a different discussion. But yeah, you would probably rough high and save yourself that loser.
But if East plays the queen, then the Jack 10-8 probably become good.
Right, but remember that was like half a loser. That was a finesse that we could have not taken, and you're still left. And this is the key: you're still left with the club loser. So the best way to summarize what to do when you're in doubt here is just to go through the same steps again. Count your winners, count your losers, and think about what you need to do. And in this example, you've already lost 2 tricks, so you can only afford 1 more loser, but you have 2.
Yeah.
Right? And so your real question here is, at this point, how do you get rid of an extra loser? Is everybody with me so far?
Beautiful. Love
Okay, so what do we do now?
it. Just love the club.
Very good. You slough the club. Because that's the loser you're trying to get rid of, right? That's kind of your problem. So what you should see here is, well, roughing doesn't work. Pitching a diamond can't be right because, what good does that do you? It's not a loser.
Might be a winner.
You could be a winner even. You should see that pitching a club, you get backed into it if you think about it this way, but what you're doing is setting up for eventual club rough, right? And let me just see if I can... See, I claimed her. I don't know why I did that. But so... if you pitch a club, let's say East pitches a club too, just because, right? West can't really hurt you now. All you have to do is get the hearts right and you're fine. So, let's say West, what's a good thing for West to do here? Let's just say he leads the Queen of Clubs, okay? It doesn't really matter what he leads. So, you might win, lead a heart to the ace, and now you might, go up to dummy to the ace of diamonds and lead a heart. If you get the hearts wrong, I'm not going to berate you too much, but I would finesse because West has shown length in spades, and his defense suggests that he didn't have anything to rough with himself. He's probably trying to promote a trump trick for partner. So if the Queen of Hearts doesn't show up here, I would finesse. Contrary to the rule of 8 ever, 9 never, which again, I don't teach rules because I like to think. So you finesse the heart, you draw the last trump, and now you can rough that awful little club in your hand and turn out to be a hero, right? Because at this point, it plays itself. Does that make sense to everybody? This is kind of a difficult hand because we sort of play automatically whenever people lead their long suit, and we don't really think about the consequences. As a good declarer, you always need to think about the consequences of what you're doing and have a reason. So, when you said you wanted the rough and do that, that's a reason. That's better than just doing it just because, right? That's how you get to, thinking about, well, if I do this, is actually a really good thing, It's like going to the store and stealing a candy bar, I'm going to love the taste of this, I'm going to love putting down that trump, but is it really good for me, 200 calories, an arrest? I don't like that,
Well, I would think on this hand, particularly for somebody that they led the queen for a reason, because you're void on the board.
All right.
And you have to stop and think, why did they lead the queen? Because a lot of times you wouldn't lead the queen.
Right, and that's another observation. It almost answers your defensive question where West could have led a low spade, and he didn't. So, at a very high level, you can think about things like, well, why did they do what they did, and why did they not do what they did? And it's because they're people. They're thinking about the hand as well. The keys are right there behind the decaf one on the left, I think.
Well, particularly since they have an extra spade. It's not like the...
Right. Yeah, and
Somebody's out.
Yeah, no, you're good. I don't know if I'm mixing up my right and left. I tend to do that a lot. But yeah, but the idea here would be that West is leading the queen because if North doesn't rough this, it's still going to be a winner, right? If West didn't particularly care, really wanted East to rough, he might have led low to kind of turn on some signals. But for declarer, which spade West leads is really irrelevant because we went and counted our tricks, which are always constant. You know, the whims of the defenders are, you know, subject to who you're playing against. So I don't like to judge those if I don't have to. Does that make sense? But this is a good thing to point out, though, is that you do need to be aware of what they're doing because there is inference in that. Drawing from it is what's tricky. Were there any other questions about this?
Okay, on trick 3,
Yeah, trick 3.
we talked about here. Well, we'll go back before you actually lead on trick 3. Do you play, okay, if you know, wait, I thought south was,
I mean, West's defense here is very simple. He can't lead a club because it's a broken suit. He can't lead a diamond safely because East encouraged spades. So leading the queen of spades here is absolutely clear because occasionally East will not have the queen. You'll get a trump trick that way. But also, you don't want to ever lead either of these suits because it looks like declare might finesse them.
okay, but I guess, well, we talked about which spade do you lead. West knows East is out of spades.
Right.
So somebody's going to rough it anyway. So should you hang on and lead a slow spade?
Normally, it's right to lead high because now you're preventing declare the option of pitching any kind of loser and exchanging that, right? Occasionally, what will happen is that declare will try this loser on loser play, and it won't work just because there's just nothing in the hand. Doesn't mean that you should ignore the concept here entirely. It's a good thing to know. But West's idea here is that if it does go like this, he's won the trick. He might even lead another spade just to see what's going on. On this hand, it's irrelevant, but on other hands, it can make a very big difference. You're leading a low spade here on defense when you want partner to rough to get into their hand. Because like you said, partner's going to rough most of the time anyway, so it's just a question of who you want on lead. Where's that extra trick coming from? If partner has a natural trump trick, I want to lead the queen. You know, and not oblige partner to rough with their already existing trick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a tricky issue, but that's like that's the rule of
You
thumb.
don't want partner to rough with a natural trump trick. I get that.
Which I did. I North played the 6. I roughed with the 7. Now my queen. Now I lose my queen of trumps.
Right.
Yeah. So we put the king out there
But ignore
to
select.
put them to we put the king out there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions on this?
Well,
Okay.
the king's going to get. I mean, the third spade. If you play low, that third one's going to get roughed anyway toward the end. So you're never going to get 3 spades.
Right.
Yeah. So sacrifice the king. I mean,
Yeah.
More or less, if you want to think of it like that. But we're going to go ahead and do the next to last hand. It'll be hand number 5. And our wonderful declarer South is again going to play 3-note trump, and this time West is going to lead the 4 of hearts.
Which one wants to play it this time? Y'all had a good group yesterday. Yeah, we all did.
Edith, you want to play it?
Sure. There's 2 more, so y'all can take
Yeah.
turns.
And here again, the bidding is really immaterial because we're talking about just general tactics and not really necessarily inference. So when you guys get situated, West leads the 4 of hearts and declares again. I want you to get in this habit of getting into a plan of counting your tricks and seeing what can go wrong. And I don't want anybody to play any of the hands entirely here. I want you to take a minute and actually think about this. And talk about it with the table because,
Yeah.
you know, I want to encourage you to be able to stop at trick 1 and say what's going on. So that's all for most of the bridge problems out there is, you know, being able to be patient and think ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. You get another. You should get 3 more. Once you set the diamonds up, you gotta get the last ones first. But you have to solve. Yeah, because usually that's not gonna win right. You never know, when a bunch of first tricks with an alien in. It's not gonna do you any good.
Well, you said bunch of junk, I mean, that's for showing she has some high cards.
Yes, I know
Not
that.
like that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean junk. Said the wrong word. I'm just saying that
I had done that too.
if it's not gonna cost you anything, then it's not gonna cost you anything to play that nine.
Like if it's, think of it, if it's queen little, you
Right.
always play the queen.
Right, it's free.
I just
Free
think
queen,
Susie
so
Crouch
the same
would
with-
just the opposite.
Well, especially not
Really?
You hear
Well,
things.
the nines-
Oh, it says jack.
The nine's never gonna take a trick. But it's gonna force me to play
The,
high.
the nine might work,
Yeah.
I've had it work, so.
yeah.
But it's never gonna take a trick.
Okay, well anyway,
No.
so we're
It's gonna
too
force me to
hard.
play higher.
Too
That's
hard.
why you play it.
Okay, let me say something.
Okay, so we're gonna play the nine. I don't care, I'm playing the
Every time
ten.
you change suits and go
Still gonna do that.
Let's see if she got the king.
Yeah.
unless you have to.
Now, I don't know if it would go lower than you.
So what did you need to start
I mean,
off
the eights, I mean, I think we did cut it off to nine.
Probably, yeah.
Forcing stuff, I
Probably.
mean, as far as your.
So,
Yeah.
The
yeah,
eights.
unless
Like,
I send a message.
But it's
to
not
you,
force something.
Okay.
Three's not force anything.
But you have to start somewhere
Yeah.
to keep
But the
showing.
eight's
Or
work.
what
Eight's
you
will
like,
make you
but
more
you don't
worthless than the nine. So you
Okay,
hadn't given anything up.
That's
so
right.
Why don't you?
Okay, when you left
Force me to play
cards,
high.
you're telling me
Okay.
something, right? You're telling me that you probably have 4 of them.
In other words.
Well, I know, but, okay, so you just keep it.
now, I'm gonna give you a count.
That tells me nothing.
Well,
So you gotta think, that's how many cards you
One end or the other, don't play them right in the middle.
You got 8, and then what you got. So you know that
But that's,
you may have at least one
But
left.
it's probably three. It's all
it's
right.
probably high-low, so it's probably an odd number.
No, we're doing upside down.
I know, high-low is odd number, and upside down.
Right, okay,
So you either have 1, 3, or 5.
right.
And now you're telling me what to leave.
And
And now you're telling me what to leave.
I should,
Yeah.
No, you take your money.
No, I think that was
Why not?
to your
What's
Owen.
this? Oh, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's to your Owen. Okay.
Sure, you do too. If you
Okay,
can't take
now
your
I'm
friends,
telling you. See, this is what I'm talking about when you're talking about
okay,
your
so,
Owen.
this is gonna be tough.
Right?
Yeah,
No, it's not, this
we
is,
all need
she's
to
on
know.
diamond, so.
okay, so I'm gonna tell you. how
Director.
Yeah, don't worry. Did you guys go down yet?
Not yet, we're still playing.
Okay.
Diamonds, you take that back.
You guys take your time.
I don't have any
So what,
diamonds.
now what do you have?
Oh, this is the,
Here's Mary's lane.
Jack, where you live?
Well, and you really need to
This is on the
say.
jack.
okay,
Yeah.
well.
And I
Oh,
play
that's,
this.
that's part of our strategy.
Now,
Yeah, no, they're.
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
Playing the
Okay, but since you say
All right.
7, I'm gonna say 7.
Now, back in.
Oh, yeah. So how many do I have?
Three.
Okay. And that tells me nothing about your cal, other than you want to take the trip. We don't follow the rules, come on.
Back on horse.
Mhm.
Oh, then I'll play my, ace.
I don't know how he can.
Play the real game.
No problem. Well, that's no problem. I don't love it. I would never think about doing this in real games. That's stupid.
Leave that one.
And that should be by 9. And then the 4
None of you
spades.
first thing. Now, I'm gonna give you a clear signal.
Okay, you really want a club lead.
Yes.
Then, the 9.
Or hearts. Hearts is my first choice.
Yeah.
That's you. Up to what you have.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, let's look at it.
If I were getting a lead. I'll leave that back to you for 14.
Wheeler. He's an analyzer.
Okay.
Stop.
Freely. Gave you the same, what, did you play?
Yeah,
Okay.
like 10 minutes ago.
Well,
He's fine. Okay, you're going to Hardaway. So you don't like hearts anymore?
well, no. Well, that's kind of,
Oh,
And
wait.
he might have you leave something else
That
the
makes it
second
clear
time,
we should.
because, let's see,
There was something that don't have like hearts.
okay,
We didn't bid anything, right? Or we don't?
no, let's see, she's gonna take the heart, and then what you got over there with the spade.
When she started to leave that club and
All right, which one, Mary?
needing something else.
Oh,
I
I'm
thought
pitching
that-
spades.
Yeah.
I didn't have any club.
Well, I didn't know she had the Queen Jack club,
I'm the one
and
pitching
she let a low
Now you
club,
need the nine.
so,
Okay.
see, and that was just like the third trick, so.
I mean, you could have had two good hearts though.
but now they need to
Lead, I
maintain
mean,
parity.
The heart lead requires
I
like
gotta
6
catch, I gotta cover that.
What'd you say now?
I don't think it really is going to make a difference which round suit she leads because you're betting on similar odds. And
Yeah.
If anything, the hearts require less points in your hand. So if you had an auction,
Okay, so, I mean, because I didn't see her hand, I mean, you know. She
And I got the
had
last two.
the 4 hearts, and then she took it with the queen.
Oh, down one.
And then she.
I know, down, no, you
He
made
must
it.
have gotten back over here, he must have gotten over there
Made
with
four.
the queen of
Make
spades.
three. They got the
And then she
they
did the
got
queen
one
of
of those
diamonds.
right,
And
And then she got back in.
right,
You
and then
took
she
three
started
tricks.
with clubs,
Well,
right?
I got,
No, she didn't,
No, you don't need the
because
heart.
I bought this
you
card.
usually, and I couldn't see the
This is
hand.
trick.
We got
Usually
this trick, you got the
she
last
11,
two
12,
tricks.
You know, you
Okay,
have
so
to
you
change
did
suits,
make
but I didn't
Yes.
know she had the queen jack.
no figure.
Right.
But I did
Well,
this
I
wrong.
want
I
to show you
should've
guys
done-
the
should've
thought
described
process
it wrong.
because
Yeah,
you
I'm
don't
not
want to be in the
interested
habit. You don't want to be in the
Y'all get
habit
a whole
of just
bunch of cards
automatically
if you play
partner
cards.
suit. Like that's not a good habit at all. Usually
Yeah,
it's
I
right.
You gotta play
understand.
them early.
But
Yeah.
We don't get in early.
there's an instance
Well,
in this situation
yeah,
that's
let's
crux
see.
of the player's correct
She got
play
in with king
that
of
will help
diamonds
you
for
guys
this.
know kind of when and when not to
That's when
switch.
you have
That's
to leave
I'm kind of glad you brought that up.
Right in
Yeah,
there.
that was what I was saying, I didn't see your hand.
What happened over the years?
Oh, my goodness.
But
We made it.
normally, it's not always
Because they never
needed,
laid
but
clubs.
You usually lead it for a
Okay.
reason. And
So
if
we'll,
you
I'll just
squat,
talk about this then.
a
All
lot
right.
of
So
times it's not always.
real quick before I explain this
Certain
hand
things
though,
you have to start with.
I want to show you at the end of all this whenever how you can access notes, but like I have this little slide here that kind of summarizes the gist of what you need to be thinking about at the table, okay? You don't need to know every percentage of every possible suit combination to be good at bridge, okay? That's like the point of today is that you don't need to be a numbers person, you just need to be able to think. And all you're trying to do is win and lose tricks in the appropriate order to the appropriate person, okay? So some of the hands we talked about earlier that involved losing tricks early, it involved catching a lot of winners to see what cards they pitched. It involved finessing into a particular person. You know, the trouble with bridge, the reason bridge is difficult is because it doesn't just matter how we win stuff, but it also matters who we win and lose things to, as we've kind of seen in the past examples. Those are just ideas you might consider, and I express them very generally only because talking about the very specifics of it would lead us into a lot more classes. But I have other things on my website which I'll show you at the end. This is just something to kind of keep in mind for the last hand. And it might help you guide the thinking on this hand. Okay? So we both had this similar problem, but we both did different things. So, okay. I don't want to do that just yet. So we all see the trouble is that we need to set up diamonds without them switching clubs, right? So I think what happened at both tables is we won with the Queen of Hearts. You know, and you can lead a spade to the board. I don't care how you go about setting up the diamonds. It doesn't, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, you lose the diamond. And from a defensive standpoint, what I want to talk about here, again, it all revolves at trick one. What happens, right? So in this situation, what I like to do is make the situation as clear for partner as possible. So I play the highest honor to show or imply the sequence. And then whenever South wins with the queen, unless declare is crafty, West can assume that East does not have the ace of hearts. He would have played it. He also doesn't have the jack of hearts, or he does have the jack of hearts, because playing the 10 and South didn't win with the jack, it's pretty logical to assume that East has it. Does that make sense? And if you think about it, if East had the ace of hearts, it's good for him to win it and shift again through, because you might be finessing against South's queen or something, right? So that's why that's considered normal. So East, the fact that East didn't do this places the ace in South's hand. Does everybody follow that line of thought?
Not exactly.
Okay. Well, just to show you, so notice that dummy has 9-3, okay? East is looking at his hand, and it doesn't really matter which one you play, right? Because there's only 2 in dummy, and these are going to be equal whenever the 9 is out. Do we agree on that? So East's real trouble here is simply how to communicate to his partner what his hand is, because the most useful thing that East can do besides playing the correct card is helping partner know what cards he has, in that order, right? So when I'm sitting East here, I think, okay, well, what card I play here is really irrelevant, so how can I help partner? Partner probably wants to know what honors I hold. So the normal thing to do is when you have a sequence here to play, the lowest. Some people would play the 7 because you're surrounding the 9, but if you think about that, it doesn't really matter what you play. Just help partner out. I mean, don't make this more complicated than it has to be. If you see this, it's going to look kind of strange, because now South could have like ace, queen, jack, 10, and it's just more likely that he's fooling you. If you play the 10, there's less cards missing, so it's less likely. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so at this point, however, West gets in eventually, right? And knowing that South has the ace of hearts, and because West's entry is gone, we lead a spade, finesse a diamond, right? So if South is the ace of hearts, how is West getting back to his hand, right? It's not super clear where the clubs are. They could be either way. West should have this idea that since North's led a spade over to the board, the spades are all solid and that the diamonds are probably going to run. He needs to do something now. He can't just sit and wait, because then the declare will make his contract. Does everybody see that? That's the kind of thinking that tells you to shift. And at this table, we didn't shift. And at this table, we talked about which to lead first, and then, how do you know to automatically shift? And you just have to think about, do I need to do something now? We could.
Stupid to lead another card. I can see that.
Right, and it's a lot easier whenever East, say, gives count, because now we know that North has 5 diamonds. But I don't want to get into the specifics of that.
How do you, okay, which club should they lead? Should they lead the high one?
I would lead a low one. And the reason that is because
You're still saying.
you're basically what you're trying to do is prevent from getting blocked. For example, if we lead the queen and East decides to, play dumb and play low, you made it harder on your partner than you had to. If you lead low, now partner's never going to put in the 10 at risk of losing to the queen small or something. So he's going to win the ace.
But
And
if you had the king and dummy of clubs, you'd push it out with it.
yeah, if the king was in dummy, then you need to consider things, and you might have led differently from West. But again, it's just another situation where West is trying to do the right thing and also make it clear for partner what's going on.
And they wouldn't set it up if they led the queen of clubs, showing the jack, and you take the ace, and then take.
Not to say that he wouldn't do it. It's just that here it legitimately gives up a trick.
Yeah, it does.
Right, because now East can't get over without giving South the 8 of clubs, and
But it's a no-brainer with the little clubs and dummy to just go ahead and lead low from 4.
yeah, and this is a situation where again you're looking at dummy and you're thinking about what does partner need. Since you need to take your tricks, you have to assume he has the ace king. If that makes sense. And if he has one of them, it's still okay to do that in match points because you're setting up a good suit. But that's not the point of the day. Isn't really the defense. But I'm glad we're talking about it because that's what the declarer's problem is, right? declarer can see that there's this giant hole in the club suit, and as soon as the defense gets in, they should piece this together. They won't always, but sometimes. And the other thing I want to point out is that when declarer wins with the queen, all of this is possible, right? Because now there's inference of where the ace is. So what should declarer do differently? It's not a bad idea. But notice that if you do this, then they can still switch a club. It's not a bad idea. It's a little bit harder for East. But the fact of the matter is if East isn't looking at the king, and if he is, then
You're suggesting to take it with the ace, that first trick?
Yep, that's exactly the right thing to do. Because you're kind of known to hold this. If you want to think about it like that. If you had played the queen, like we said in the earlier example, it's really easier than to piece it together. And now that you've seen this, you might be able to apply it to other hands where you can see it. There are some card combinations like this that it's just kind of hard to know what to do at the table unless you've seen it before. But this line of thinking can get you there.
So you're playing the ace to kind of shield that queen.
I'm just trying to fool the defenders is really what I'm doing.
Yeah, fool the defender.
Okay, and so the other consideration I put into this is, you notice how I'm going to have a issue getting to dummy back and forth with those diamonds?
Right.
Because the spades are blocked, and I'm going to end up losing another trick. So I also have to do what's called making a necessary assumption. Okay, and all that means is that if you need something to work for your hand to make, you assume that it's working. Because otherwise, you're just a Debbie Downer, and you think all your contracts are, going to waste. So I'd like to think here that East does not have the king of diamonds, because even if he does, I could end up in a situation where, like, if East is king fourth, I'm going to get blocked and never going to set up my diamonds, right? It's not going to be great for me. The other problem is that if West is the king of hearts, then I can't have East shifting through a heart and doing damage. So, and I don't have the luxury of just going over the dummy and finessing it. So I have to do something like, I would say...
Tell me again, though, why taking the ace is just trying to fool the opponent?
Yeah, so we saw prior to winning the ace that if we won with the queen, what would happen? The defenders can figure out the heart suit.
Okay.
When you win with the ace, it's a little more difficult, right?
Okay. So,
Now we don't know whether East has queen jack 10 or just jack 10, and East doesn't know whether West has the king queen of hearts or just the king or just the queen. It's more ambiguous.
yeah.
And so that's why if we go about our line, we hope that the diamond's won in the right hand. And what is West going to think now? If East is the queen jack, a heart lead is correct.
It goes against human nature. We want to take it cheap with the queen.
Mm-hmm.
But if we take it with the ace, they're both equal cards.
But you know what the key is here? The key is at trick one realizing that this is a problem. Right? Because if trick one, if you'd not seen this, then you would have already lost the boat. Just out there off to the iceberg. There you go. But
So you're saying if they take it with the ace, it's less likely?
yeah, you're giving yourself another
I mean,
chance.
the defenders will pick up that they should lead a club.
Yeah, when you're winning with the ace, it's less likely they'll shift. You're trying to confuse them. Now, they should still prevail, but you're making it harder for them to do so, right? It's like what most defenders that you'll see in the club do in this position is they'll catch the king of hearts, and East will put down whatever card his thumb is closest to because people don't think, and then West will be stuck because he doesn't know whether East has the queen of hearts and is playing low or whether he needs a shift. It's just how it goes. But does this idea make sense?
Well, yeah.
At trick one, we saw that the defense had a legitimate way to set our contract. And we said, you know what? You're going to earn this. And you tried to fool them. Because you lose absolutely nothing doing this, right? Because you were going down anyway.
Well, yeah.
You're just trying to do all the things that you can to...
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So does that make sense?
Yeah, but I just,
Boy, that's...
I don't think
I
any
still-
of us would have
Because I feel like you're
ever
making
thought
that
about
king
it.
good.
Yeah.
Well, you are, but that's not the point of the hand. See, you're down if they defend perfectly, right? So whether you win with the ace or the queen, if he catches the king of hearts, you're still down, right? So by winning with the ace, you're hoping that you'll misguide them into like underleading the king or cashing the king and being stuck, giving them a chance to go wrong. Does that make sense?
Fooling ease.
Yeah, you're fooling both of them. But
Maybe we should have let it club from the beginning.
and that's the other thing. So we talked about, well, which suit do you lead here?
Yeah.
First of all, it's kind of hard to say for certain if there's a one that's better without an auction. If this is kind of what happened, like a 1-0 trump, 3-0 trump, normally the bias is for the major because Stamen wasn't used. But if you were absolutely in doubt about which suit to pick, I don't really know if there's a better choice here, because leading a club is safe whenever a partner has, say, the 10 or the king, but it could be equally disastrous if the player has all of those. Leading a low heart has similar consequences, but the suit could be broken more often, and but on the other hand, partner has to have less points for that to be productive and run the suit. So, it really is kind of a toss-up. As to what you pick, I mean,
Well,
I don't have any strong opinions.
I mean, normally, what I've been told, if you get to 3-0 trump and Stamen's not used, it's better to lead a major.
Yeah, that would be your preferable choice if that was your auction.
Even if it's not that pretty.
Mhm.
Even if it's just 3 to the point.
But you
Absolutely.
still have an 8-card fit, so.
Right, and that's the thing, is that in that kind of auction you sort of have that inference, but I'm just pointing out the idea that, I mean, if you lead a club, then, the defense would be too easy and we wouldn't talk about this hand, right? So this is where points are won and losses whenever there are those decisions that are made, and sometimes you get the same outcome no matter what you do, and sometimes you have to work for it. And our job is just to, know how we can work for it, because we can't really choose whether our leads are right or wrong. It's sort of a gamble.
But if East had the ace of hearts, then it would change the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a completely different idea. You'd be thinking about similar things. It's just
Yeah.
your conclusions would be different, perhaps. And so,
That's why the third man normally plays high, not all the time. So you had X-ray vision.
so we're going to play the last hand here, and now I'm going to leave the bidding up here.
Let's see. Who's playing it? South?
South is going to play this. You don't need to worry about what North-South's bids mean. You just need to understand the East-West are passing. Okay? And so West is going to lead the 9 of diamonds. Okay? And so what we're going to do, I'm not going to let you guys play just by yourselves exactly. I'm going to sort of ask leading questions and guide us to the right answer here.
Name picture. Good dummy.
Oh, Jack.
Okay, so South plays 4 spades, you get the 9 of diamonds lead, and dummy shows up.
Can you put your hand in?
Yeah, I will, I'm just, the bidding doesn't make sense to me.
That's all right. The bidding doesn't really have to make sense here. I just want you to look at East-West bids, and they're passing. That'll be you might find that important in a second. That's a big hint. I will be happy to explain you the specifics though here in about 15 minutes.
None. Someone tricks. Diamonds are, oh, yeah. I didn't know.
What could it be? What people have, this 9 has closed on it. It's a special, every card,
Yeah.
that's what.
And remember,
one of the-
usually it's
every card has a close on it.
It can mean several things.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not mine, maybe yours.
Well, it's not fourth best.
Good.
Or,
It's
Yeah.
or double, but it's not top of nothing. It's top of
So
nothing.
talk to me about what you
It's
guys
top of nothing.
You got this top of that, let me see.
So it's
it
probably,
looks like I've got one that I need to.
I think it's either a single or a double.
100% agree.
Okay.
And, Well, and yeah, depending on how many he's got, he should be able to, oh, that way, he doesn't see her.
Well, how many trucks do I have with this road?
Oh, my goodness.
You got a few. Not
I would
many.
never
Those are
leave
probably
a
your
single.
two best options, really.
I would never leave a single.
Okay, so the thought process is
Are
spawn
you getting all that,
car.
Mary?
So tell me when
trying.
you want to look at the
Well,
season
you
division.
just wouldn't leave it, I mean, you're never gonna get to rough, which
Did
is
you do
right.
anything else good?
So I've got probably three.
So look at the diamonds first and tell me what you think. What do you know about the
Well,
diamonds?
yeah, I'll let you know what I have.
I mean, I never got a rough, which is two, so I've got three trucks.
Oh, you're
The queen out.
gonna get a rough.
I mean, you know,
with only one.
This is question is what do you have?
How do you choose one to get?
Okay, I don't know.
You don't know that.
So I got
That's kind of
six.
good because usually you don't want
Seven.
to
I'm
plan
not
to yourself.
nine
You're missing the
tricks.
ace queen ten, right?
And a bid
We'll talk
is
what we know, right?
spades,
Because
so we
those
need
are the
one
cards
more
that are
trick.
missing that are important.
She's led a diamond.
What else do we know? And let's look at like what she left. What is that? What is nine diamond that's
Probably
leaving?
double, so he's got honors.
He's got the ace and the queen, so how are you
Play
gonna play
low.
this?
Not a lot of diamonds.
Okay, I agree. It probably indicates shortness, right? You know, leaving a high card from a doubleton or a singleton is pretty normal. If she has like three small or something, you need to talk to your
That better be a
opponents. But
double.
we'll say because it's the best thing to do, but she doesn't have three or more because then she loses one. Does that make sense?
Or a single.
It's making
Either one
more
is
sense, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So who do you think has the ace of
I
diamonds?
have a trump.
Oh.
I think we know now.
Good. The ace of diamonds is absolutely over here. Who do you think is the queen of diamonds?
Well, I mean, you could know that.
I'm not sure.
She slept in a club.
Oh, no, probably here.
Why?
She doesn't like clubs.
Because she doesn't have a lot of diamonds.
Yeah, it's probably a
Well,
shortness
I
lead.
know
And the only time she
she
has
has
it
a
queen is if she had exactly queen 10-9 and then she would leave the
Yep.
queen.
So we're gonna give her
Top
two
of the
hours.
three, six. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
These are all just inferences,
She,
positive
she
and
wouldn't
negative.
want to leave and make her queen vulnerable.
Right,
Is
it's,
that-
right, it's really just more likely that she has
You're not
short.
supposed to take part.
But that's a good call.
One more trick.
So,
I think I know
assuming
that.
that she's short, and
Anyway.
basically over here, do you think you're getting a diamond?
Now you gotta figure out how to figure out
Exactly,
what
you're not
the queen
going to
is.
get one, right?
That's
the
your
top of
job,
the dice, you know.
Mary.
Does that make sense? It takes a little bit of
Well, he
footwork,
had
but,
the, he had the,
Nobody.
so now you know what you need to do, right?
I've already said I didn't like.
There's only one other way to get
Still
in
wait
the
till
trick.
it's showing you, I've got a whole bunch of clubs, hit about. That's never gonna.
Right, and so now your question then is
Well,
simply where's the
why not
card
keep
is,
So
right?
you're hoping that maybe I'm gonna get a rough with one.
If they
I'm
have
hoping to
short
work that.
and these, she may have.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Man,
I like where you're going. I want you to just kind of play out the next couple of tricks, and I want you to see if you can figure out where the queen is
queen
for
is.
it.
by what
And
to
in a
do.
case like this, does it, should I
I'll
play
show
my
you, so I don't
king
mind.
How we do that?
For all intents purposes, it doesn't particularly matter.
I'm
I
hoping
normally
they're
play
gonna give us
low
some
just to see if I get a surprise.
Information accidentally.
But it's not really an important point.
At three.
That's a good
Yeah.
question, though.
So you're taking that in the hand.
Let's see. What happened on the fourth trick?
She took,
I'd already
You were
told
trying to
them.
club.
yeah, she
Yeah.
turned a
I
club.
just want to see where you're trying.
Okay. So now it's your lead, Mary.
Oh, wait a minute, we're in space.
Yeah.
I should know that by now.
Usually, it is usually helpful to draw trumps before you do anything else.
Right.
Every once in a while, you have to not do it immediately, but normally it's a good thing to do. Okay. Let's see.
On the board.
We just need one more trick.
So let me ask you this: who has the heart queen? Just don't play anything for a second. Who has the heart queen?
We're working on that.
Since you
Why?
had a diamond normally, I would give it
Well,
back to you.
Had, so he had the ace, but he had the
Queen.
queen.
Yeah, I mean-
7 points, up 6 points.
Then you make her
He might
king.
have the queen, round that to 8. and she
Except
probably has
you don't
7
know what I've
points.
got.
Just splitting
And I
them.
couldn't.
I like what you're doing because you need to think. You
So-
need to think about where the points are,
Because
right?
of what I played.
She's only lead
And like
one,
you said, I probably.
she's only
got
played one
double or
honor, which is
something.
the queen.
Then you may
So
want to
she's
go ahead
shown
and
2
play.
points.
I like what you're doing, so I'm going to give you a hint. So you see the auction
Yeah,
up
if I
there?
could,
There's
yeah.
one bid that's very important, and there's only one bid that's very important, and that will help you piece the rest together.
Well, it's a very
So-
weird, she should have bid her spades first, shouldn't she?
Don't worry about the north-south bids. It's another big thing.
Yeah.
Everybody
So-
passed.
Now,
I thought
East,
they-
west, passed every time.
Right, and that's very important for very
So the-
subtle reasons.
So the numbers are split evenly, pretty much. I mean, nobody has more than 10 points.
Okay, that's a good inference, right? Because somebody might have opened something, you know, if they had that. So keep going with that. Tell me
So
what you
he's
figured
already
out.
played 6, so maybe she has the queen. Maybe.
Well, he
Okay.
did, he got to.
How about this? One of us is the queen.
That's very
We're at
good.
the same
All right, well, he didn't,
Okay, so stop playing for a sec. Go ahead and win this. That's what you're gonna do. Now tell me who has the queen.
she didn't, wait a minute, when you
And if
bid,
you don't know, tell me you don't know. We'll talk about
who bid spades first? You did.
it. Okay, good. So let's go through what's happening.
No,
So
makes
they
no sense.
queen H diamonds
All
are off the
right, they
diamond,
bid
right?
spades first, all right, he
And then they
didn't
let it
go
club.
to say he had hearts.
So
But bidding doesn't mean.
I want to give you a hint like I gave them. Look at the auction.
That's what I'm saying, he passed.
There's one
He
bid that's
passed.
very
He
important.
said the bidding doesn't mean anything.
Oh, the
There's
bid.
only one
Except
bid.
You, you want to open the spade?
Except for the fact
Tell
that
me what it
nobody
is.
did.
Well,
Nobody had the preponderance.
It's an inference. It's an inference at Weston.
It's not any of the north south.
He
bids.
did say that there's a one bid up there that's important,
It's passed.
and it's passed, and it's which
So
one.
nobody has the preponderance of the points.
Thank you.
Nobody's
That's right.
points. That's what I.
That's a good habit to get into. Absolutely. That's
I think she's
okay.
got-
But you see that now, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of, what I like to do is kind of remember,
Okay, so I
like
took
think
it
about what
over
happened,
there.
because usually there's something bad happened, like here you lost your diamonds. Like you kind of, oh,
Fires from
well,
the short
who won
side.
those diamonds, right?
Low,
And then you can place those points with that. Does that make
Well,
sense?
Uh,
So how many points do you know that you started with at least?
Except you don't need to here.
I'm doing it. That's
Don't
what I
cheat,
always
just think
do.
about
I
it.
like
But-
practice.
Remember what happened the first
I mean, in
three
this
trips.
case,
Honors from the short side.
it doesn't matter, because this can
Take
fall
your
all
time.
the
I want you to struggle.
That's when it becomes important.
Yeah.
Remember, she was on lead.
Yeah, see,
How
I
many
don't.
points did this come in? Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
In this
11,
case,
12,
just figured it
13.
out.
Yeah.
So you had
You need to
in
play
your
some.
hand to start with.
Or some.
I don't know.
Let me see. You may not have any.
Well,
I'm just asking about the first 3 or 4 cards.
Yeah, I know.
I see what you're doing.
I
That'll be
know,
important
I'm
here in a
just trying to
second.
say,
Yeah, what you're doing is good because when you find out which bid is the most important here, it helps
Oh,
you
you're
piece
in your
together
hand.
where everything is.
yeah,
And I end up
You'll want to consider all 4 hands, but
yeah.
remember,
I mean, I know you got
Still-
opening. but-
remember what she led, right?
And she's got the other two.
The 9 of diamonds.
Right. So what happened
6,
after that?
7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
9,
12.
and then it
Well, I
went
thought
to
they were- I
the,
missed
I
half
had
of
the
it.
king and the jack.
Very good.
And
That's right, because she rocked.
queen, the
Very
rock.
very good. What happened next?
Okay.
That's why it didn't matter whether you played the short side or not.
And
Don't
then
play that. You're in your hand.
There you go. See, now
Okay.
that was a little bit of a struggle, but it
What
wasn't
does this
terrible,
say?
was it?
Yeah.
Right? You just figured out she had 6 points, and you didn't get any of my help.
Slow,
That's good.
play upside down.
Oh.
I like
See?
hearts.
See how that works?
He's telling
She
you
played
he's
those cards. Those are those points, and that's important because in the bidding, people act on points.
That's what I was.
Y'all
That's
are
why
all
I wanted to
wrong.
write
She was trying to count your hand
Y'all
and
are
hers,
wrong.
and she's looking at her hand and saying, okay, well, I know there are these points out based on the auction, that's what she has. You both are doing the same thing for different reasons. Does that make sense?
Okay, so.
I guess you're right, I could.
Yeah, well, you got trumps
Right.
to waste.
Now, what about the length
I
of her
won't-
suit?
I
Do
won't
you remember
worry.
how many diamonds she's supposed to hold?
Okay.
That one's a little trickier, but think about it. And I think if you get there, you know what to do afterwards.
No, I only had one.
That's right.
So, did that's the
7,
right way?
Seven,
Yep,
And
she's
then-
fixing to.
She finessed the right way because I said I had the queen.
8,
Why do you do that?
9,
Because I
10.
don't have the queen.
Ah.
That's what I
You're
have.
about to
She's
say
got
something
3
really
diamonds.
I lied.
We were right the first time. We were right.
No, but it's a good thing, but I.
We played upside down, so I said I like
So you
this
had to write down how many points.
Well, here's
you
the
had.
thing. So,
How many points your partner had from the bidding.
Why don't
When
I
you-
say I have the
And
queen?
then.
when you hear what we're going to say
figure out how
afterwards, you're going to be able to wrap
Or
people
in
to do
your
that. And
hands,
then it
and
won't
that's
matter
what
whether
he's
you call a
trying
director or not.
Come
And
on,
that feels
you
better
start
for me
out
because
with
whenever they're getting smart like
just
that, I just
open.
like to show them
Oh, let's see, I'll just have to.
where it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
over
wait,
there.
so how are they supposed to figure out?
It's
I will
Okay.
explain in just a second. I want to see if they can figure it out.
Wait,
and we'll
wait,
talk
Now,
about
there's
it.
nothing wrong with what you
That's
mentioned, you're
26.
calling
I
director.
can't put my
That's
hand.
not illegal, that's not illegal, is it?
That is illegal. That's all sorts of illegal.
You're kidding.
Well, I guess that's right, because I'm blind.
It's something about the mannerisms.
You can't say we play upside down. This happened in
good
Atlanta.
thing.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
So let me find the book. It was like,
Because I mean,
I don't
sometimes
want
when
to.
I
And they
have.
let
Well,
us
no,
say-
I don't want to answer you
26.
correctly.
no, I think you're,
And
I
I
think
have
you're correct. I mean,
10. There's only
if
4
I'm
points
saying
out.
I
I
like
know
this suit, I'm lying, and I'm not allowed to lie.
She may have.
Well,
an
the
ace
trouble
or
is that
king
whenever you
jack or
physically
something.
say something that isn't a bid or a play of a card, it's extraneous information.
Well, I didn't say anything. I wouldn't say anything in extra.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
I think
different.
that's what
I thought you
we're
actually.
Oh, no.
I would never do that.
Remember what
No,
I
if you
said,
can
well,
say you can false cards
I
next
can
to
follow
one.
it's okay if
You can fall as long
A lot
as she's
of
just as
times,
schooled as
so
they
I'm
are, and it's
protecting
not a
the
pattern
kid.
for you guys. You can false
I
cards
knew
next
I
to
was.
one.
I know exactly what
Okay,
he's
and when I say that,
Because you're looking at this and have the instance, but he's doing. You can do that.
okay, so and when I play
Well, I
this,
think
and
you need
if they
to
ask,
top first.
Mary says,
yeah,
what you're seeing, she was gonna say upside down.
Yes,
I got all.
absolutely.
I
That's
know.
okay.
That's
I'm
absolutely
trying to
okay.
figure out where all my cards
Yeah,
are.
let's
I'm trying to put this board back together and I'm missing all my cards.
Did they get caught up in this thing?
Well, I thought they might have, but really, the
All you
jump.
have big on line.
So how do we feel about where the Queen of Hearts
When you
is?
did that, I thought, oh my.
She's
Look,
sorry,
all
put
my
it in
spades are
my-
gone.
Okay. So
There's all my cards.
at trick one, if your opponents, as long as your opponents don't lead the highest from 3, you can claim at trick 1 in this hand. I'm going to show you how.
Oh, this is,
So the most important part of this hand was East pass. Not any of this other gibberish, it's very distracting, but this pass is the most important bid, and don't ever forget that because it will save you many boards later from today. So when West leads the 9 of diamonds, we can agree that this is probably from a shortness lead, right? Does that make sense to everybody?
yeah.
So I can place East with the ace and queen of diamonds because West doesn't have shortness with the ace and queen of diamonds. So I put 6 points in East's hand, and I've also put about 5 or 6 cards in East's hand too, right? Because if West is a doubleton, and I'm looking at 6 cards between Dummy's hand and mine, East has at least 5. Does that make sense? So as I kind of wince here, because I'm going to lose the first 3 tricks and I need to establish a heart, something good happens. West shows out. It doesn't matter what West's pitch is, I'm just doing it for flair. So East started with what diamonds? Anybody want to tell me? It doesn't have to be the exact pips, just like the important 2 cards and how many. Ace, queen, how many times? You have 5 or 6 diamonds?
You can
Probably, I think we've got 6.
He absolutely has 6 because when West shows out, he only has 1 diamond to start with.
Right.
And since you have the other 2 hands in front of you, the 4th hand is known. Does that make sense? So this is the trouble. So when East shows up with the ace, queen, 6 of diamonds and passes, don't you think you would have opened this hand with a preempt?
Right.
Does everybody see that? So East shows up with his suit. It's like, wait a second, shouldn't you have preempted? You know.
You have 4 hearts.
Right, exactly. So, right, and that's the other inference. So you're knowing about East's shape here. So you know that East has 6 diamonds and 4 hearts, and you know shortness in the black suits, right? So you're almost there. Now the trick here is East also didn't open at the 1 level, right? If East had this hand with a good 10 count or so, or an 11 count, I would probably open this hand. It's very distributional. It's a good suit. I mean, there's a lot of reasons you'd be opening this. You know, whatever the opening is for you. Does everybody agree with me so far? So my point here is that I can place East with about this hand here, and really all I need to see is what club honor he has. You know, if we want to get precise. So what happens here? Come on, buddy.
You have to look what you wrote down there, declare after swearing privately in the nearest bathroom.
Because that's what people will think here, but they just won't say it. And like they look at these 2 hands and they say, 4 losers. Like, you know, because they're at a guess. But you're better than that because we're not at a guess. So after the diamond gets roughed, and let's say they return a club, okay? Both tables miss this, and I will show you because it'll make your life easier. You might as well just rough a club high. Because if we know East has 10 cards in the red suits, you played a club there a second ago, there's only 2 left, and you have enough trumps here to take care of everything else. And the reason you're doing this is to see what club East has. Here he shows the king. That's important because we now know he has 9 points. If he also has the queen of hearts, he would have opened. Does that make sense? So even though East has more hearts than West, and we would normally, absent information, kind of think that he has the heart queen, you know that West has it. Okay, so you can kind of play out the rest of the cards however you want to go about doing this. But the point here is that you needed to consider not only what was played, but what wasn't bid and what wasn't played. You know, this is what we call making inferences. And there are positive inferences, which is just like, okay, well, he played the ace, so he has the ace. And, you know, he played the ace, so he has the king. And then there are negative inferences, which is like, okay, well, you know, East, you know, showed ace, queen, six of diamonds, but didn't open. Therefore, he has 4 hearts, or 4 spades, most likely, right? Does that make sense?
I just didn't think that.
So when you get to the hearts, I think she was in her hand, you played toward the king.
Yeah, so, and this is when a trick 1 is important. Notice this is a two-way finesse position. It won't matter where you end up. If the... Like, see, the thing of it is, if you change the heart suit, you only have one way to finesse.
Yeah.
But, you know, it'd be something you would, I suppose, keep in mind if you needed to. So, because you know you need to finesse one way, you could plan for that later. But on this hand, it wasn't a big deal. But what we did here with the club, you'll sometimes hear it's called a discovery play, and that's just a smart way of saying we're just trying to find out what cards they have. It's kind of like what we were doing earlier when we were running a bunch of tricks and setting up somebody discarding something dumb or, you know, finding out about the count. Same idea, it's just got a name, you
Now, I
know.
noticed that you played, you threw away on the ace of diamonds, the queen of clubs.
Yeah, Wes is doing that just for clarity for his partner because
I threw away the 9, which I thought was still,
you want to throw away the queen because that's clear. Unless you have real specific agreements otherwise, the 9 will
because
be...
you got the jack 10.
Yeah, it's just easier if you show the sequence because then partner's going to be like, oh, well, he doesn't have anything else.
Okay.
And then it won't be ambiguous like, does partner have the heart ace or not? Yeah, it's just...
Okay.
It's a good thought. I just, if you, especially with pickup partners, they'll catch on to the queen more likely than the 9, even though the idea with both is the
But
same.
then I noticed you led the 9.
Because now, since we have a sequence, we're going to lead the bottom of it, and that's our, you know, we have queen jack 10 9, not queen jack 10.
Yeah.
Very nitpicky signaling discussion that you probably don't need to worry a whole bunch about, but it's there if you have questions about it. But the main takeaway from this hand, though, I got a bit on the rant, is that on this hand, you have to consider things that you normally wouldn't consider because it's available to you, really, is why. It's always available to you. But here it makes the difference between making the hand and going down because you know with absolute certainty or near certainty where the queen is. You end up with a guess otherwise. I don't know about you, but I'd prefer a certainty over a guess. You know?
So are you saying that, okay, after they take the ace club, instead of playing the hearts, you play the clubs and trumpet?
Yeah, because let's say that East showed up with, let's say that East showed up without any, like 2 small clubs, okay? It'd be a little bit strange, but now it's a little less clear what's going on because now East has room to have the queen of hearts and not open, and it, you know, sort of makes sense. So that'd be a situation where now you have the inferences and the knowledge, though, and you know that you have this guess between, you know, he's got 4 hearts, he has 3, there's no indication where it is otherwise, and then you would finesse East for that reason. Because now you don't have any truths, if you will, you just kind of have to back up on what's more likely. And if you have more hearts, you're more likely to have the queen. Right, so, yeah, so that's like not everything you can do, but that's most of what you can do as a player.
That are really difficult.
And it really isn't, it's not that this stuff is necessarily hard, it's just that being able to use it in different situations comes more with the more experience you have. So like some of these things that we did earlier are real easy to people who have done it several times or have, you know, gone down in similar situations before, but the thought process there is always the same, and I want you to walk away from today feeling like you get how you're supposed to be thinking.
I think
You can still go down as many hands as you want, that's fine, but as long as you're trying to apply the stuff, you're on the steps to becoming a better declarer. So if you are curious about seeing the hands or anything like that,
we messed up a board accidentally.
oh, that's all right. As long as, yeah, that's,
Doesn't matter?
no, it won't matter.
Okay.
But the website is on my card, if you want to look at notes or anything like that, I've started doing these little like webcasts, and I record all the video sessions. So you'll see everything that we've talked about on there as well. So, which reminds me, I need to.
Okay.